Welcome back to the Black Fabulous News Channel. Thank you for tuning in. Today, I want to salute to the forgotten heroes who delivered their descendants out of perpetual slavery in the United States. And what do I mean by perpetual? I mean that when you were born a child, you were a slave and you died a slave. Let me say that again. Perpetual slavery in the United States. If you were born in slavery, you died in slavery. That's perpetual. And it went on for 400 years. And I'm here to tell their story. We're going to talk about that today. The descendants of freemen are survivalists and thrivalists. And I am the Black Fabulous, and I'm here to talk and tell you about these heroes, these forgotten heroes. Because you know what? We tend, when we start talking about civil rights and everything, we tend to skip these heroes and go to the 1961 around the civil rights era, okay? This happened in 1861. So we skip these forgotten heroes and jump all the way to the civil rights era, Martin Luther King, and shout out to them. But let me tell you about these heroes, because these heroes, they fought and died to get their descendants and their families out of this perpetual slavery. So we're going to tell their story here today, their forgotten story, because they fought for freedom. In 1861, 200,000 proudly served in the U.S. Union Army and the Navy. So a little background right here. We're going to go through some history. So Black Americans in the Civil War, we're going to start with that. So in 1861, the United States was plunged into a devastating civil war that sparked by the secession of the southern states. At the heart of this conflict was the issue of slavery. But the fight wasn't just about fighting. It was also about justice, rights, and the promises made to those who fought for freedom. Black Americans played a crucial role in the struggle, not only fighting for their freedom, but also for reparations and the rights guaranteed by the 13th, 14th, and 15th amendments. The fight for reparations. As the Civil War unfolded, the Union recognized the necessity of enlisting Black soldiers to bolster their ranks. Black men were eager to fight, not only for the Union, but also for the promises made by the government, freedom rights and reparations for their sacrifices. And we're going to talk about their sacrifices because 40,000 of them died. That's sacrifice. That's real sacrifice by blood. So the 13th Amendment, which abolished slavery, the 14th Amendment, which granted citizenship and equal protection under the law, and the 15th Amendment, which aimed to secure voting rights, were seen as vital outcomes of their struggle. The role of these 200,000 Black men enlisted in the Union Army and the Navy, fighting valiantly in major battles and proving their courage and commitment. Their participation was not just about the war, it symbolized a fight for dignity, respect, and the right to claim their share of the American pie. Black soldiers faced discrimination and unequal treatment, yet they persevered, determined to secure a better future for themselves and their descendants. Let me tell you, let me stop right there. Let me tell you a story. In 1861, in that time frame, the United States implemented the first draft because white men didn't want to fight anymore. Their casualties was high, and they needed to fill those ranks. Black soldiers, black freedmen walked off these plantations, walked off the plantations, and they went eagerly. They didn't have to be drafted. They volunteered. 200,000 of them volunteered. So let's talk about turning the tide. The contributions of the black soldiers were pivotal in several key battles, including the Battle of Fort Wagner and the Siege of Petersburg. Their bravery helped shift the tide of the war and underscored the importance of freedom, not just for themselves, but for all Americans. The Civil War was a defining moment in American history, representing a struggle not only for preservation of the Union, but also for the rights and dignity of Black Americans. While the 13th, 14th, the 15th Amendment promised a new beginning, the reality of unfilled reparations and systematic inequality continued to challenge the nation. The legacy of those who fought, especially the 200,000 black soldiers, remind us of the ongoing quest for equality and reparations today. And we're going to stay tuned, because what happened to these 200,000 freedmen that fought? Stay tuned. This is what happened. What did white supremacists fear more than freemen's voting rights? That's deep. Let me say that again. What did white supremacists fear more than freemen's voting rights? And we're going to get it out into some history, some recorded history, facts. Listen, Andrew Johnson here was a Confederate racist Democrat SOB. And let me tell you the story here. President Lincoln, a Republican, was president at the time, and he got assassinated. But when he ran for his second election, he had Andrew Johnson. They ran a unity ticket, and he ran as his vice president, and he was a Southern Democrat. This doesn't happen much. You have a red plantation party, and you have the blue plantation party, and they both ran on a unity ticket. But this is what happened. After Lincoln, of course, the war was over. He was the president, overseeing the whole war. And so he went to a theater. He was watching a one of these plays at a theater, and he had a racist, terrorist Southerner sneak up behind him, which is very cowardly, while he was in the theater, and snuck up and shot him in the back of the head. And as a result, he died. And this racist president, vice president then, rose to be president. And so when Lincoln was assassinated, it made Andrew Johnson's day. Oh, he rescinded all of the progress during Reconstruction. and we're going to get into this, the Voting Rights Act, all of this, he backed up, he rescinded. You know, freemen, as far as voting, they were electing governors, not governors, but they was electing U.S. congressmen, senators, and they had voting power at that time. And these racists, they didn't want them to have that voting power, but they feared more than just voting. And so let's talk about that. They feared this more than voting. And so let's talk about that. Let's talk about this. Military disarmament. Because you have to realize that when those 200,000 soldiers fought, 40,000 of them died, most of them after the war, they went back home. And you have to understand that when they went back home in the South, in those southern states like Alabama and Mississippi and Tennessee and Georgia, how do you think those white supremacists, what do you think they thought about these heroes coming back and they killed some of their brothers, fathers? It didn't go well. Let's talk about this. And so what they did was military disarmament. So the federal troops withdrew, after Reconstruction. And so federal troop withdrawal following the end of Reconstruction in 1877, federal troops withdrew from the South, leaving black communities vulnerable to local laws and violence. And so these freemen, this is what happened. And it was the end of protections. With the loss of federal protections, black citizens, freemen, were no longer had the support needed to resist disarmament efforts. There were social and economic pressures, economic disadvantages. Many freemen faced economic retaliation for attempting to possess or use firearms. Employers could fire or blackball them, making it difficult to earn a living. Pressure. In some communities, social pressure and fear of ostracism discouraged freemen citizens from standing up against disarmament laws. The judicial system and inequitable enforcements. Courts often upheld these disarmament laws with biased rulings that favored white citizens and enforced the status quo. Lack of legal recourse. Black citizens, freemen, foundational Black Americans had limited access to legal representation. Little chance of winning cases against unjust laws. The combination of black codes, local enforcement, intimidation by terrorist groups like the KKK, economic pressures, and an unresponsive judicial system effectively disarmed Black Americans in the South. The result was significant reduction in their ability to protect themselves, marking a pivotal moment in the struggle for civil rights and the ongoing fight for equality. They didn't want them to have the Second Amendment rights. That's what they feared. More to come. Let's check out this. Hold on and listen. Listen. What did white supremacists fear more than freemen's voting rights? The Second Amendment. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. This is what they have feared during the Civil War, 1861, into even modern times today. We're going to bring that history from then into modern times. Let's go. Let's finish the Civil War part so we can get a full understanding, a little bit more on this. So, in the aftermath of the Civil War, Southern states implemented a series of laws, practices aimed at disarming Black citizens, particularly those who served as Union soldiers and in the Navy, vets. Here's an overview how this disarmament occurred. Black codes from 1865 through 1866. This is an overview. Immediately after the Civil War, Southern states enacted black codes, restrictive laws designed to control the newly freed Black population, the new freemen. This disarmament provision, these laws often included provisions that prohibited freemen individuals from owning firearms. States justified these laws by claiming they were necessary for public safety. State legislation, Pacific laws, various Southern states passed laws specifically targeting gun ownership among the freemen. For example, Mississippi. In 1865, the Mississippi Black Code prohibited Black people from owning firearms unless they had a special license, which was really rarely granted. Louisiana's similar laws were enacted, making it illegal for Black residents to possess guns without permission from local authorities. Local enforcement and intimidation. This disarmament through fear. Local law enforcement and vigilante groups, notably the terrorist group KKK, Ku Klux Klan, often intimidated Black citizens into surrendering their weapons. The threat of violence was a very powerful tool to enforce compliance. Confiscation practices, in many cases, weapons were confiscated outright by local militias or law enforcement under the guise of maintaining order. And so, they want to take their guns and their weapons away from them, this Ku Klux Klan, so that they can kick down the doors and bring the Black men out and rape them and hang them. That's right, rape Black men and hang them, torture them, because they was defenseless. And this is their way of controlling the Black freemen and the Black men, was to take their weapons away. They don't want a fair fight. A fair fight is they have no weapons and you have all the weapons and 30 and 40 and 50 men with weapons. That is how they wanted to leave Black Americans defenseless so they can provide and conduct their terrorism. More to come. So go ahead right now. If you're feeling this, go ahead and like and subscribe. Appreciate it. What do white supremacists fear more than freemen's voting rights? The Second Amendment rights for descendants of freemen / FBAs / Judah. Let's fast forward to today, and the threat persists. Black Americans continue to face significant dangers from both crime and systematic racism. The Second Amendment is more than just a legal right, it's a vital tool for self defense and empowerment. Understanding our history is essential. The right to bear arms is a right that was denied to our ancestors, and we must reclaim it. Studies show that Black Americans are disproportionately affected by gun violence. However, access to firearms can also provide a means of protection and fostering a sense of security and safety. It is imperative for the descendants of freemen to engage with the Second Amendment actively. By understanding our rights and advocating for them, we can protect ourselves and our communities. We're going to jump into some of the history of Black American militia groups. Although it is difficult to pinpoint, going all the way back, but the first Rhode Island Regiment from the Revolutionary War is a prominent example, followed by groups like the Black Brigade of Cincinnati during the Civil War. More formal state level militias emerged in the late 1800s with groups like Virginia Addicts Guard, formed in 1870, and numerous DC based companies like the Washington Cadet Corps, formed in 1880, appearing after the Civil War. Early and notable Black American militia groups, the Black Brigade of Cincinnati, organized in 1862 during the Civil War, was the first organized Black American group employed for military duty in the war. Post-Civil War militias. Following the Civil War, Black men formed their own militia companies in states where it was permitted, like the Addis Guard, aforementioned. The first Black militia group to form in Virginia after the Civil War, established in Richmond, Virginia in 1870, a DC-based companies. Black men in Washington, D.C. quickly formed their own companies, including the Butler Zouaves, Independent Blues, National Band, Georgetown Zouaves, and Liberty Guard, which participated in the Emancipation Day parades and other events. The Washington Cadet Corps, formed in 1880 in Washington, D.C., by the Civil War veteran Christian A. Now, we're going to talk about the recent group. Some of you may know or have heard of the Black Panther Party. It was founded in 1966. This group is often cited for its armed patrols to monitor police activity. Now, we're going to talk about the NFAC. It's a militia coalition. I'm going to go ahead and tell you what the NFAC means. It's some French, so bear with me. It's not a fucking around coalition. A more recent group formed around 2019 that advocates for Black liberation and gained prominence during the racial unrest of 2020. Not fucking around coalition. NFC leader Grandmaster Jay, he was indicted on federal charges linked to Breonna Taylor's protests. The man, Grandmaster Jay, he was sentenced to 7 years and a couple of months. But we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk because I have some intelligence on that. So stay tuned. I'm going to provide you some intel, and we're going to investigate what happened to Grandmaster Jay, also known as John F. Johnson, the founder of the Not Fucking Around Coalition. He was sentenced to 7 years and 2 months in a federal prison for assaulting federal task force officers by brandishing a rifle at them in September 2020. He was found guilty of the charges and he is currently incarcerated. Now, in September 2020, he was protesting in Louisville, Kentucky, and Johnson allegedly aimed his rifle at federal officers who were on a nearby building's roof. Again, let's digest that because he got 7 years and 2 months for this. So let's talk about this. Let's slow it up. Let's talk about this for a minute. Because the police or the federal agents, they were never in threat. They were never, there was never a threat to their lives. Okay, so this is what happened. They're on top of the roof, they're marching. They might have heard noise or kind of saw something. It wasn't clear. So, if you have your AR, you have a gun, you have your scope on your gun, and you also have a flashlight on your gun. These are tools. And so the flashlight is used so that you don't shoot somebody that you don't want to shoot, so that you can see, especially in the dark. And so Grandmaster Jay, he pointed his gun so that he could see, not to shoot, not to threaten officers. He didn't even know they were police officers or federal agents up there. He didn't know that. That's why he turned on his flashlight attached to his AR, and he wanted to see what was going on. They used this to give this man 7 years and 2 months. And so what this is their fear of foundational Black Americans, descendants of freemen, the fighters, the ones who have the fighting spirit, the descendants who stand on business. They fear that. And they are in fear of Black Americans exercising their Second Amendment right. And so this 7 years and 2 months sentence is to intimidate Black foundational Black Americans, descendants of freemen Black Americans. They are trying to intimidate in not exercising our Second Amendment right. Now, check this out. If you don't believe that, understand that we are in the belly of the beast. And the belly of the beast is going through judgment right now, whether you believe it or not. In that judgment, there will be natural disasters, extreme weather, inflation, maybe economic collapse, global conflicts, military conflicts, cyber attacks, nuclear war, possibility, tariffs, power outages. Now, let's be reasonable. Any of this can spill over to direct threats to you and your loved ones. Any of these things can happen. And so the lessons learned on this, and I want you to pass this on. You have your AR, You have a flashlight on it. Do not point it at any officers. And even if I understand that Jay didn't know that there was officers, so this is what I recommend so that you don't make that mistake and others don't make that mistake. Buy you a headlamp. The headlamp goes on top of your head so that you can have your hands free and that so that you don't point your weapon at someone just to be able to get a visual on something. You can use your headlamp and turn that on while you're carrying your weapon, and now they will not be able to charge you with brandishing or pointing or aiming your weapon like it was a threat, but aiming your weapon at a federal agent. So that's lessons learned. This is what I want you to take out. I want you to take out of this video, exercise your Second Amendment and buy you a headlamp so that you don't make this mistake, because you can be out there again exercising your Second Amendment right. It could be at nighttime. You flash your lights and he happens to be a federal agent. They can come back and charge you with this federal crime, brandishing a weapon at a federal agent. Let's not fall for that. Lessons learned. Thank you, brothers and sisters, for listening to this. Pass this video on, like and share if you feel there was some value to you. Thank you, and take care.